Now we're going to discuss planning, and we've got this image here really because sometimes planning other GCSE, other maths courses, sorry, like GCSE, A level, can sometimes feel quite linear. I mean, I know there's sort of dipping in and out and interleaving, but it can sometimes feel like a linear journey. And you need the skill to be able to do this. And core maths is really different. And I think at first that can be really overwhelming. And and so the approach to planning and delivering your courses has to kind of be different in order to be able to solve these kind of open problems. So it's probably more a bit like a spider's web. And what can often be a really nice starting point to core maths lessons is just to pose a question or a statement and to get students to really think about how could they investigate this, what could they find out. So they're really having to decide on the kind of mathematical tasks that they need to do. So for this one, we could have lots of different things. We might want to find some data. We might want to clean that data and practice our spreadsheet skills, take a sample. There's just so many things that we could do here. And I think, this can feel very, very different at first and perhaps a little bit scary. But I don't think you need to think of it as all the lessons need to be these big open projects. I think even just presenting this context and students realizing the importance of having a data source. And then you might want to just go and practice using spreadsheets because they might not know that, they might not know how to do anything with them. And knowing that skill is important and valuable, just even by having that starting point, can be a really good hook of getting them in there. And it can just all build up. So it might be a mixture of presenting project ideas, but then also, having some more traditional taught skill lessons, because most students are kind of come into you without being able to do standard deviation, and that is something that you're going to have to teach them. But hopefully they can see why they need it and what it's used for. And sorry, obviously, a really important thing is that they can take all this information and assimilate it and present it and kind of summarize what they find. Now, I know that that's not really a particularly satisfactory answer in terms of what should I do with my schema work. And we get asked a lot, can you give me a really good schema work? And the answer, unfortunately for us, is no, because every school or college is different, and your students are going to be very different to a different kind of establishment that's down, even in your local area. It depends. Are you 11 to 18 school? Are you in a sixth form? How much time do you have? And the kind of students that you have, what other subjects are they doing? It's just so variable, and that can be really, really challenging. All the awarding organisations do provide supportive material for their courses. Some of them are interactive. You can move different activities around. And that's why looking at the case studies and things might be useful. If you're a particular kind of organisation and you want more you want to collaborate or discuss with other places what they've done, what it might be worthwhile doing is getting in touch with us, and we can try and find someone who's in a very similar position and share that way. But there is no kind of magic formula that's going to work really well, unfortunately. The reason I put collaborate with other departments in there is because that if you find out from your geography and psychology departments that these particular subjects are really important for their course, well, then that might influence where you put it in the course. And the last one, choose the topics carefully. I mean, for me, this is a really important one because, if you're giving students freedom to take this course or not, if you start with something that they are not engaged or inspired or they think is relevant, then they probably will vote with their feet. And I think it's a really great thing to start with teaching them personal finance, regardless of the course that you're offering them, but working within the context of finance, because everyone can see the relevance of it, regardless of what they're doing as well. And there's quite a lot of nice projects that can come out of it as well. you know, they can just see how useful and relevant that is. And you're obviously practicing lots of skills like percentages, spreadsheets, those kinds of things in quite a non-threatening way, but you can hook them in quite easily there. But there's lots of different things, and you know, you might find that your class has a particular interest in something that might be a really good starting point. So one teacher's advice here is, you know, plan 4 activities and don't worry how long they take. Now, I think again that can be quite overwhelming, and also you might be in a position where you need to produce planning documents for, you know, SLT, and that, you know, I understand that. But core maths is very, very difficult to know what you're going to be doing on a Tuesday in November, because the whole point is that you have this open problem solving approach that students can take in their own direction. And if you're too rigid in how you structure that, then that can kind of really stifle perhaps where they might go. And if you do have the actual guided learning hours time, if you have enough time, then there should be the freedom to do that, because there isn't a great deal of new level 3 content, and it's more about the approach. So I do understand that that's a really difficult thing to think of, and I would really strongly recommend that you join a Maths Hub work group, because those are small groups of local teachers that are able to really collaborate and discuss, and you really set the agenda of what happens within those meetings. And you know, with this group of similar teachers in a similar position, you might be able to come up with you know, several projects or a structure that would really work for both you and the way that your organization is, you know, is governed. I think this is another really good advice from a teacher as well. So just let you read that. I think this is just really reiterating what I've just said as well, that, you know, it's nice to dip into lots of different things. If you look at a schema work and it just says 2 weeks of spreadsheets, if you just did spreadsheet skills, perhaps without a strong focus on the context, you know, it's perhaps a little bit dull. Whereas if students really care what comes out of those skills and that analysis in a spreadsheet, then it can be so much more motivating. I put these statements in because they're all taken from a collection of examiner reports across all the different core maths awards. And I think if you just take a moment to read them, and what they're just reinforcing is that students are quite good at the mathematical processes, and we're obviously very good at teaching mathematical processes, but what is challenging is teaching them to work within the context and to take their results and to actually apply what they mean. And it's really interesting because when you read examiner reports from other subjects, it tends to be more that they're very, very good at working within the context, but having the maths there to back it up can be the problem. So if we could sort of join our skills together with those of other departments, I think we could just have a real perfect scenario. And that's probably a good point to say as well, that we do meet quite a lot of other non-maths specialists who teach core maths very successfully. And, you know, if you can have a mixed team, that can work really, really well, because everyone's got different skills to bring to delivering the course. And finally, there is some additional funding to implement this course. We're aware that obviously staffing and you know, structuring this can be challenging. And this is some information about the Advanced Maths Premium. So what they do is they take your baseline numbers. So it's the mean number of students you had doing level 3 maths in 15-16 and 16-17. So say, for example, you had 20 students on average over those 2 years. £600 is paid for every additional student. So if you kind of kept your A-level numbers the same at about 20, but you opened up a class of 15 core math students, they would bring in 15 lots of 600. And yeah, finally, just to remind you that the Getting Started Padlet is there, and you know, I will update it with, you know, regular PD and things like that, so you can you know, look back at that, and it should always be relevant. The other thing to note is if you just click on my name at the top of the Padlet as well, you'll be able to see other Padlets that I've produced. They're all about core maths, unsurprisingly. And some of them there are the pre-release Padlets that we put together. And that can be an area that some people are a bit concerned about, but we always run webinars as well. So when the pre-release material comes out, we get all the teachers from that particular specification together online, and we just, bash ideas around, and lots and lots of teachers very generously share their questions and their ideas. So it's not something to fear. It's not a process that you should be worried about.